Welcome to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross and this episode of Laugh More, Stress Less with Professor Pete Alexander. Pete is known for his expertise in stress relief, stress management, and stress reduction, and he's a true pioneer in his field. As the president of Office Plants by Everything Grows, the premier interior landscaping company in the San Francisco Bay Area, he brings a unique perspective to the table. In addition to his role as an adjunct college professor, a TEDx speaker, and he is a best-selling author who has inspired countless individuals to conquer stress in their everyday lives. He's a wealth of knowledge in marketing and a passion for helping others apply these concepts to their specific interests, and he is sure to provide us with valuable insights today. Pete, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for having me on your wonderful show, and I really appreciate your listeners' time as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's an important topic, and I love that we can come together and do this. So tell me, what inspired you to pursue a career as a stress specialist, particularly in the realm of stress relief and management?
Yeah, well, it actually wasn't something that I intended to do because stress and I have had a lifetime relationship growing up in a very dysfunctional family. And what I ended up doing, I took on the hero role. And the hero role is the one where you just try and succeed at whatever you do. And the reason I was doing that was because I just wanted to get out of the household. And what ended up happening is I didn't really learn how to deal with the stress. I just kind of pushed it aside and let it churn inside of me and tried to ignore it as much as possible. And what ended up happening is back in 2008, I had a perfect storm of stressful things happen to me. My dad was dying and he needed his affairs to be taken care of. My mom had major surgery and didn't have enough insurance for her physical therapy, so she needed help. My business had several employees and they needed my attention. My kids were small and they wanted dad's attention. My marriage was heading for a divorce. All these things were all just piling up on my shoulders. And what ended up happening is about 30 days before I went to see the doctor, I lost 30 pounds. And it went really fast. And at first, I was thinking, wow, this is fantastic. I'm in my mid-40s. I'm losing this weight easily. And I'm thinking, I haven't lost weight since my early 20s. And I'm eating whatever I want. I'm not doing any special exercise, just my normal exercise. And the weight kept on coming off. And so after I had that, I looked at the scale and said, wow, that's the 30th pound. Maybe there's something a little more serious here. And went to have the blood work done, and sure enough came back with stress-induced diabetes. And the crazy thing is I didn't listen to my body about what stress was doing to it. Instead, I continued to burn the candle at both ends for another 10 years, as a lot of us do, until I ended up in the emergency room with a severe case of diabetic ketoacidosis. And for those listeners who don't know what that is, my body was actually eating itself alive because of my stress. And that was an epiphany moment for me, because I realized that I better figure out how to deal with the stress better, or else I wasn't going to be around to meet my future grandchildren. So I decided, I've got to focus on my health. I started experimenting with several different stress relief tools and techniques. And not only did my stress go down, my glucose numbers as a diabetic went down, my weight went down, and my energy level went way, way up. It was as if I had discovered the fountain of youth. And the crazy thing is if you saw a picture of me from 2008 and you look at me now, other than a little bit more gray hair, I actually look younger today than I did in 2008. And that's what stress does to us. It ages us rapidly. And so my friends, my family, they all said, wow, you ought to write a book about this. And so I did. And then I just started speaking on it, just about my experience. And, I'm a working professional. I'm a professor in business marketing, not in, psychology. But, the reality is that I'm like the average Joe that just, puts his career ahead of his health. And when we trade our health for our career, that's a really bad trade. And so I thought, I got to get the word out so that hopefully if even one person changes their ways from listening, then it's all worth it to do it.
Yeah, it most definitely is. And I know I have never even heard of stress-induced diabetes. I'm familiar with type 2, type 1,
Yep,
the
yep.
usual, but you don't normally hear of that. And, until you and I had met, and I was like, wow, okay, that is just amazing.
It is.
But
Technically, though, if a doctor was to say, well, technically, stress does not induce diabetes. Yes, there's a middle ground there. So what happens is that stress causes us cellular inflammation. And cellular inflammation in our bodies is what causes chronic disease. So for me, it was my weakest link of my body at that point was my pancreas, even though no diabetes runs in my family. Others, it might be cancer, it might be heart disease, it could be any number of things. So but if I say, well, I have cellular inflammation in my body that induced diabetes, it's like people go, what? So, but yeah,
yeah,
so that's the technical jargon, but it's easier to understand it as stress-induced diabetes.
yeah. And if you wouldn't mind, because to me, it just really kind of blew me away when you shared with how your awakening to what really was causing that, your experience that you had when you were in the hospital, your job
Mhm.
at the time. Would you mind
Mhm.
sharing that with others?
Sure. So what ended up happening? I ended up going into the emergency room, and they immediately transferred me into ICU. They first thought I was having a heart attack because the doctor said I was 1 hour from being comatose. My blood sugars were so high because I was stressed out about work. My blood sugars were so high that the medical grade glucometers could not read my numbers. So they had to estimate them in the lab. They estimated them to be 8 to 10 times higher than normal. And this is the crazy thing about it. At that point, I was actually working. I had gone back to corporate. An old boss of mine had said, please come back and work for me and blah, blah, blah. But then he had moved on and I was working for a micromanager. And, I was in my mid 50s at that point. And what I remember is that on my second day in ICU, I get a text from my micromanager boss at about 6 a.m. And the text said, you have a webinar you need to run at 8 o'clock. What are you going to do about it? And the crazy thing is, you would think that some people would just say, well, go, up yours kind of a thing. But what I did was I pull out my phone and I start pushing the envelope of what my phone can do to try and reschedule this webinar. And so the nurse that was on staff for me at that point, she comes over and they were checking my blood every half an hour. So, if you're unlucky enough to have to stay in the hospital overnight or several nights, etc., you don't sleep very well because they're constantly poking and prodding you. And so she comes over and she takes my blood, and at the point before I had gotten this text, my blood sugar numbers had come back down into more reasonable ranges. They were still high, but they were not astronomical like they were before. And as she takes my blood while I'm trying to reschedule this webinar, like a 90-degree angle, my blood sugars shot straight back up. And she says to me, this is pretty much a perfect stranger. She says to me, you realize that's what put you in this hospital bed in the first place. And that is like what was, when I mentioned about the epiphany moment, that's
Mm-hmm.
what I was thinking. I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm trading my health for my career. And that is a really bad trade. And as I found, there our two most precious assets are our health and our time. And so, we can't get our time back. Once that's gone, it's gone. Our health, we can't just assume that we'll get our health back. I'm stuck now with a chronic disease that I have to manage every day. Why? Because all I did was focused on work, 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 and my other responsibilities and kept on saying, yeah, I'll get to my health when I get to my health. And at a certain point, if you burn out, you can't assume that you're going to get your health back, or it's going to take a while to get your health back. So it's really, really much better to avoid getting in that situation in the first place.
Yeah, and the insane thing to me out of all of that is the fact that your micromanaging boss knew you were in the ICU. So it
Yep.
wasn't like he didn't know that you were there. He
Yep.
knew you were there, just didn't care.
Yeah,
Which
exactly. And and
which is
and
what
what a
happens in
surprise!
most corporate. It's
It
like
does.
I'm
It
like,
it's nuts, and it's and what a surprise! I didn't have my work laptop in the ICU. I had my phone, but I didn't have my work laptop, and so it's just like, are you kidding me?
you mean to tell me that was not the first thing in your mind to grab when you were going to the doctors? I mean,
Right,
what is wrong with
exactly.
you?
Exactly. I know. I mean, I didn't even bother bringing my charger for my phone. It was, my wife brought that over to me later. But it's like, how can you, live with yourself to say that, oh, okay, he's in the hospital, and so somebody else can take care of that? No, what am
Yeah,
I going to do about it? So,
yeah,
and this is it's like, wow, there I was, I at mid 50s at that point, and it was like, I cannot believe I'm working for a micromanager. It's just wow. And it just happens. And they don't realize that, especially when it's a narcissistic personality. They just don't realize it. And so, I don't, I don't blame them. I thank them, because basically they got me to move on and take care of my health and focus on other things that are more important.
yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of times it takes a trauma or something serious to wake us up. And
That's correct.
I would love it if people could wake up sooner. Not to say, I mean, there are so many jobs out there. I know a lot of people would do that and jump through the hoops because they're afraid maybe of losing their job. Where are they going to get an income from?
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
may not be your dream job, but there are a ton of jobs out there. So, yeah, hats off to you, because I know you resisted, but I think I would have been more tempted to just say, up yours.
Yeah.
I just
Well, what I did do, after I got out of the hospital, then the day after, I did resign, and I didn't resign to my micromanager boss. I resigned to my boss's boss, and basically because my boss's boss was the person who also I had worked with at a different company, so that I wanted her to know exactly what it was, and she was totally supportive, and so and actually embarrassed that that my micromanager boss had done that.
yeah, I would think any decent human being would be embarrassed,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, how
Exactly.
do you define stress? And do you believe that all stress is inherently negative?
Well, so what I like to say that there's good stress and there's bad stress. Okay, and good stress, there's actually a word for it. It's eustress, eustress, and eustress is the kind of stress that we get when we're working on something that we're excited about, we're passionate about. So whatever that might be, it's at work, at home, it's some sort of thing that you just really are focused on, that really you enjoy. That kind of stress helps us get things done. So if we have a particular deadline we need to get for this particular project that we're excited about, absolutely. That kind of stress is not going to churn inside of us. It's a good stress to help us get those things done on time. What I did with the research of my book is I found that there were basically two flavors of stress that would be considered bad stress, or as some people call it, distress, distress. And those two flavors, one of them is ruminating about the past. So let's assume, a classic one is guilt. We're guilty about something either we did or didn't do in the past. And we let that fester inside of us. And we constantly are just letting it churn and churn and churn. And that's toxic. What is so much better is to take the positive learnings from whatever that was in the past and forgive yourself for the rest and move on. The reality is it's in the past. We can't change it. So why do we have to keep beating ourselves up about it? Just forgive ourselves. And then the other flavor of bad stress that if we can minimize, it will be golden, is anxiety about something that may or may not happen in the future. Now, a classic one here is something that we think may or may not happen badly. So let's say we're thinking about we have to have a challenging conversation with someone, or maybe we have to give an important presentation and we're worried about flopping on stage. Well, the problem is that when we have this anxiety and we worry about what will negatively happen in one of those events, we often manifest that negative outcome. And so what I always recommend to people is, if it is a perceived stressful situation, instead of thinking, oh, it's going to be a disaster, instead, let's say the difficult conversation. Imagine 5 seconds after the last word you've had with that conversation, and the other person is looking at you smiling, wants to shake your hand, maybe give him a hug or her a hug. Then you start thinking, okay, that is not as stressful because that's a positive outcome. Or yeah, if you have to give that important presentation and you're worried about flopping or making a mistake, imagine 5 seconds after your last word of your presentation and you get a standing ovation. When you do that, you'll notice that your stress goes way down because you're visualizing in success instead of visualizing a negative outcome.
Yeah, that's kind of like having some uncomfortable conversation and you sit there and run 10 million conversations through your head. And
Yep.
I don't care how many times you run it, when you actually start to talk, it never comes out the same way anyway.
No, listen, you can practice. I mean, when I did my TEDx talk, they required us to memorize our presentation, and it's a 10-minute talk, yet it doesn't sound like a long time, but when you have to memorize word for word, that is really hard. I have such huge respect for those that are in live plays on stage where they have to memorize all these lines and stuff. Only twice in my entire career have I ever had to completely memorize a presentation. I've always had the opportunity to use some improvisation, as needed to respond to audience comments, questions, etc. And you can't do that on a TEDx. And so it was a really hard way to practice. And every time that I would practice, and even on stage there, it did not go exactly as I had practiced. It just doesn't.
Go imagine that. Yeah. Yep. I can relate. I mean, I've never been on TEDx, but most people have just flat out a fear of speaking anyway. So I have respect for anyone that's able to put themselves out there and speak, because it's not an easy thing to do.
It isn't, but it's all our frame of mind first, because if we freak out before it happens, then yes, we're going to go up on stage and flop. I was a volunteer for a different TEDx where one of the speakers was so terrified, and she came up on stage and she tripped and bumped her head. And so they actually it cut open at her eyebrow, and it's just, she couldn't do the TEDx, of course. And so right. Those are the kind of things that can happen to us because we let our fear get the best of us. And whenever we worry about something that, this is too scary, and because we get nervous whenever we extend ourselves beyond our comfort zone. And so the reality is, whenever we're extending ourselves beyond our comfort zone, that's uncharted territory. Of course we're going to be nervous. That's growth happening. And I always like to remind people that fear is actually a 4-letter acronym. And that 4-letter acronym stands for fictional evidence appearing real. Fictional evidence appearing real, because we're thinking, this is so scary. Now, of course, yeah, if you're going to jump out of a plane or something that I wouldn't call that fictional. But the thing is if we're fearful about having that conversation, why are we fearful about it? We're letting our head in our mind make up all these stories about how it possibly would be a negative outcome instead of thinking it's going to go good.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. Now, as the president of Office Plants by
Mhm.
Everything Grows, do you incorporate nature and greenery into your stress relief strategies?
Absolutely. So it's interesting. There is university research, several studies that talk about how plants, real plants in work environments, not only cleanse the air because even before COVID, you can only imagine what those filtered systems
Oh,
in
I'm sure.
office buildings were like. But even after COVID, the thing is that plants and nature, they basically give us oxygen. So if you have those plants, that's going to give us a better, healthy environment. It also, if people have colds, if they've got some sort of a virus, something like that, the plants absorb that. So what ends up happening is that the clinical research shows that if you have plants in work environments, and a reasonable number, not a, you don't have to have a jungle, but just a reasonable number of plants, live plants in different office space locations, then not only are you going to have a more healthy workforce that's not going to be calling in sick as often, but the greenery, the color green, and the attraction that we as humans have to nature actually reduces our stress as well.
Yep, that makes perfect sense to me
It
too.
does. It
Yeah.
does. And I always recommend to people, if they have like their own plant, let's say, or let's say the company that they're working for is providing a plant service that has the plants. If you have a plant in your office or near your cube or whatever it happens to be, name that plant. And the reason why you name that plant is because then you're more likely to talk to it. And if you talk to it, you're going to actually find that your stress is going to start reducing as well. And it actually does good for the plant because the plant likes you talking to it because it likes to absorb your
Energy.
what you're basically, as you're talking to it, it's absorbing and it's doing its thing to bring a more clear oxygen into the environment.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't even think about that. I
Mhm.
used to always tell people, I'm like, don't give me plants because I kill them. I don't have a green thumb.
That's why.
So
That's why we have a plant business.
I've always had the fake plants inside my house,
Oh,
but I'm getting pretty good at growing them outside. But I'm in an environment that they do much better. So, but I
well,
will have to try that. I have not
and
tried, naming them and talking to them.
And yeah, outside as well. That's the thing that people, think, oh, it must be really easy to keep plants alive indoors. And that's actually not the case because plants are not designed to be indoors. So, it's very easy to kill a plant that indoors if you think that, oh, okay, I'm just going to water it more, or I'm going to stick it right next to the window for sun or something. Well, depending on the variety, it may not like that. So, and then it goes through its shock, etc. So, if it was a piece of cake to keep plants alive indoors, I wouldn't have a interior landscaping business.
That is true. I know we have a lot more to discuss. I know you have some practical tips and techniques for reducing stress to share with people, but we do need to take a quick break and get a word from our sponsors, and we will be right back.
Hey, we got soul. Oh yeah, we got soul.
Hi, I'm Bobby Aldridge with BAM Metrics. There are so many programs out there that measure your swing speed, sets, reps, your BMI, your body fat, but the one thing they're not measuring that's so essential is mobility. Mobility is the key. If you're measuring your mobility, your performance will get better and you will reduce your pain. I created BAM Metrics to make it easy for people to repeat the exercises so they could do it properly at home on their own. It's simple, it's easy to do, and from a senior to a pro athlete.
Relief for PTSD, anxiety, pain, insomnia, and many other ailments. Introducing Vibe, the world's only pocket PEMF device. You place in your pocket while cooking, cleaning, relaxing, watching TV, sitting at your computer, reading, or walking. Self-contained standalone device. No drugs. No other phone or Bluetooth connections required. No monthly subscription fees. No apps to download. No Bozone. The future of medicine is in the frequencies. Come join the revolution.
So can you share some of those practical tips or techniques for reducing stress in our everyday lives?
Sure. So one of my favorite ones, we talked a little bit earlier about visualizing with that anxiety about, let's say, having to have a difficult conversation. Well, visualization is a very powerful tool. And what I like to do is whenever I am kind of feel like my stress is kind of going up a little bit, one great thing to do is do a simple 1-minute visualization exercise. So what I would do is and before I do this, if anyone's listening and they're driving a car, please put it on pause and not do this while you're driving a moving vehicle. Pause it, come back to it after you're not in that moving vehicle. But what you do is you close your eyes and you take a deep breath in. And I want you to go in your mind to a place you like to relax. Call it your happy place. Maybe it's the beach, maybe it's a park, maybe it's a lake, maybe it's your backyard, maybe it's the spa, maybe it's your favorite recliner. Wherever it is, go there now and take in all of your senses. So, what do you feel? Do you feel the sun on your face? Maybe the sand or the grass under your feet? And what do you smell? Do you smell the fresh air? Maybe the lotion from the spa? Maybe you put popcorn on for your favorite movie. And what do you hear? Do you hear the wind blowing through the trees? Maybe the water splashing on shore? And what do you see? Do you see the blue sky? Maybe the green of the trees or the grass? Whatever it is, take it all in and take another deep breath in and open your eyes. Simple visualization exercise that can help ground us at any point throughout the day. And it's just taking 1 minute. And if notice I said, what do you hear? What do you see? What do you smell? What do you feel? The reason why I do that is when we can incorporate our senses into it, it makes us go there in our minds. And so we can truly disconnect even for a minute. And it makes a huge difference. It really does. And you can do that, if you've, let's say it's a crazy time at the office and blah, 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 and it's all this noise. Well, go outside for a moment or go, sometimes they have those cubes that, those capsules where they can, somebody can have a private conversation. I've actually had some people who go into the restroom, into a stall and do it. Wherever you have to go just to do it. And it's really because it allows you to get centered and helps you regroup. So it's a very powerful thing that you can do. And like I said, it only takes 1 minute.
Yeah. And it's amazing like you said, 1 minute, how it can really change and refocus, recenter you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Another one and it's one of my favorites, is laughter. And, the reality is we as adults, if we laugh or chuckle 5 times a day, we're lucky. When we were kids, we were more likely to laugh, chuckle over 100 times a day. And so it's amazing the power that laughter can have. Clinical research from all over the world dozens and dozens of articles about the health benefits of reducing stress, reducing our our blood sugars as diabetics, as our any particular type of chronic disease can actually be helped by laughter. And the reason is because when we laugh, our bodies release positive endorphins. And it only takes about 5 to 10 seconds for this to happen. So a great exercise to do is imagine you hold your phone out and pretend that you're holding your phone out. And imagine that you just received a challenging or negative text or email from a person or organization that you respect. And think about how that message would make you feel, right? So you let that settle in. And now, with that imaginary message, imagine pointing at it with your other hand. And then together, what we're going to do is we're going to do a forced laugh for 10 seconds. I know it's going to sound crazy, but we'll talk about why after we do this. So let's go ahead and just laugh for 10 seconds. Come on. Now, how do you feel?
You feel better. You feel lighter.
You too lighter, probably more energized. Well, here is the secret sauce to what I've been trained in laughter yoga. Our bodies, as smart as they are, don't know the difference between a real and a simulated or forced laugh. Our bodies only know that we're laughing. And so whether we are doing just a jovial, true, real laugh, or we're doing a forced laugh, we're going to get those positive endorphins released into our bodies. So if we can think about, let's say a great example of this is we're in traffic and it's just like, oh, and, we start stressing about being in traffic. Try laughing. See if it makes it feel better for you. And do it for 10 seconds. It's amazing. And it's a great workout as well. In fact, research has shown that, doing laughter is really, it really does. It's a true exercise. And here's the other thing that's really interesting. I saw that how you smiled, Laura.
Because I believe it's like takes more muscles, or actually the thing is takes more muscles to frown than it does smile, I think that's correct. The statistics, but yeah. That's
correct. So here's another one that's really important. So, as we've got summer coming up, the, sunshine. Well, make sure if you are out in the sunshine that you're wearing some sort of sunglasses, some sun reflecting shields on your eyes. And the reason is, let's say we're laughing or we're just smiling. If we're squinting at the same time, we're sending opposite signals to our body. Because when we squint, that tells our bodies that we are stressed. So if we don't squint, but then we're smiling, so we're smiling with sunglasses, we're laughing with sunglasses, we're going to get the full positive effect. So just something to keep in mind on that too.
Yeah, and that definitely makes sense. I never even thought about that because, you hear the other things about, not talking to people through mirrored glasses because it looks like you're trying to avoid eye contact and stuff. And you get all these, heard all those things. But yeah, that makes sense.
It does. And just, it's funny. I have a close friend of mine who is uber competitive. We've played different racket sports over the years. And he sent me a message after he watched my TEDx, and he says, I'm using laughter to improve my pickleball game. I'm thinking, okay, so tell me, what are you doing? And he says that before, anytime he would miss a shot, because he's a good player, every time he would miss a shot, he would get down on himself. And now, each time he misses a shot, he laughs about it. And by laughing, he says his game has improved profoundly because he doesn't let the missing that shot fester to the next point and bother, and then you miss another shot. And you know how that can happen in sports. It's such a large part of it is mental, and how we approach, what are we going to do on this next point or this next play, etc. And if we keep on thinking, oh, I messed up that last one, well, guess what? We start manifesting that negative outcome again. But by laughing about it, it's no big deal. And you let it go, and you're ready for the next point. You're ready for the next play.
And that's a big important part, is letting it go. We hang on to too much stuff, especially stuff that we can't even control.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's true. And when we let it fester inside of us, like we were talking about the rumination, when we let it fester inside of us, it becomes toxic.
And I know you're a certified laughter yoga leader, which I didn't even know there was such a thing until you and I had talked. Are some of those on your YouTube channel?
Yep. So not all the laughter ones, because the laughter exercises, when we're doing them in class and stuff, I don't have the approval of all my students to show their faces and stuff.
Sure.
But I'm happy to share with anyone if they want a particular activity or something, or try something. I mean, I have literally well over 100 different laughter exercises. So
what led you to become a certified laughter yoga leader? I mean, how did you even find out about it and become that?
It's so funny. So there was I remember I was in downtown San Francisco back in 2017, and it was a Sunday afternoon, nice, beautiful day, and I was just walking through the park, and I'm looking at a few people, and they're just laughing, and literally I'm looking, I'm thinking, have they lost their mind? I mean, it's like, why that's the thing with us as adults. We're not supposed to laugh just to laugh. We're supposed to laugh because it's a funny video or it's a funny joke or something. That's not normal to laugh for no reason.
And who even made that rule anyway?
Well, that's exactly it. But it's one of these stigmas we have as adults. It really is. And so they were laughing, and I just kind of walked over, and I think there was one sign that said something about laughter. I forget exactly. And I just found out that there was this laughter yoga movement. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that started in India back in 1995. And now there's like 120,000 clubs throughout the world that do this. And World Laughter Day is in May. And it's just, it's really interesting because all these different cultures, we have these different languages, etc. But the common language that we have is laughter. And so if someone from a different country's laughing and we're laughing and stuff, laughter's contagious. And that's a great equalizer. And it's amazing how, we might not understand a word of a different language, but we can laugh together.
Yeah. And you mentioned movement, and of course we were talking about TEDx, and you've been on TEDx. I don't know if you're familiar with that one TEDx video about starting a movement, where you got a whole bunch of people on a grass hillside, and you got one person getting up, getting all crazy, and first people are just like looking at him. But after you get the second or third person in there, next thing you know, whoop, everybody, it's like fear of missing out or whatever it is, but they all just start getting in there and just start getting crazy and not caring what people think.
Well, and that's exactly what happens in our laughter yoga classes is, people, we start doing some, like we did with the imaginary text or email message. You start laughing, forced laugh, and then you start looking at other people laughing, and it just becomes a real laugh. And we just start laughing, and it's just, laughter has this contagious aspect to it that is actually uniquely human, because there are other animals that do a type of laughter, but it isn't laughter that if one laughs, then another one laughs. But we as humans, just like, sadly yawning or something, it's just something that we just do. It's just and think about it, when you see somebody laughing and they're having a good time, we're naturally curious. What is so funny? And you want to know, you want to join in, because it gets back to connecting with our inner child, because we laughed when we were children. And, then adulthood comes and we've got all these responsibilities and stuff, and, and we lose the opportunity to laugh as freely as we used to do as kids.
Yeah, I think it's remembering that you can still adult and be, still have your sense of humor and laugh, because we
Yes.
get way too serious.
We do. And the thing is that, one thing about it is you don't laugh at people. So,
No.
it's laughing with people. That's what it is. And so it's all about just enjoying each other's company. And it's amazing how a laughter club, that's what we call a laughter club, because it's funny when somebody says laughter yoga, they show up with a yoga mat. And it's like, okay, well, the reason it's called laughter yoga is not because we're doing downward dog. We are actually just deep breathing as part of the laughter, because when we do a hearty laugh, we tend to breathe deeper. And so you get this yogic breathing as part of it. And so that's why it's laughter yoga. But we call it laughter club because that's really what it is. We just come, we just enjoy each other's company, and it's community. And what is really fun is when I hear, and it's every week, I hear people in class who talk about how they see other members in the community, and instead of just saying hi, they just look at each other, they wave and go like that, and they laugh, and it's wonderful to hear, because and it's just making a difference, a positive difference in the community, and that's what really is delightful for me.
Yeah, and it's definitely better, I think, to hear someone laughing and looking like they're at least enjoying and feeling like they're enjoying themselves, rather than kicking and screaming or
Oh yeah,
God knows what else, because that's a whole lot of stress.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I remember I had this one person come to class once, and she was dragged there by her daughter. And I mean, dragged there is putting it mildly. She did not want to be there. And one of the activities that we may do is called argument laughter. And what that is you pretend to be, arguing or mad at someone else, and you're pointing the finger, but you never say a word. You just go, ho, 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 ha, 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 like this. And the reason is because when we, even if we're not doing our normal laugh, if we're doing ha, ha, ho, ho, he, whatever it happens to be, that still sends signals to our body that we're laughing. So we're still getting the positive endorphins. So so we were supposed to do it where it's in groups of two, and we're going around the room doing it, and one person is being the one that's mad, and the other one is being the one that's sorry, and again, never words associated. And when it came to her, she was the one that's mad, and she's looking at me and she's going, like that. And then she started indicating that she was going to punch me and slap me and stuff. She clearly had, and this was like early into the class, she clearly had some anger issues with me. I figured I would never see her again. At the end of class, she came up to me and she said, I absolutely needed this. And she came back regularly. She passed away last year, but I mean, it was amazing, the transformation that she did. And it was, just something that I'll never forget.
Yeah, that's got to be an amazing feeling too, to know that you were able to help someone and give them a new perspective and change.
Yeah, it is. And we're having at our local club here in a couple of weeks, we're going to be in the parade, the city parade, for the first time. And so we're all going to be laughing and trying to share the laughter there with the community at large now. And so and basically do the parade and the march and not worry about what people think. Just let them enjoy it.
You'll have to do some facial exercises, because I don't know, but we've gone to see Jeff Dunham before, and my God, we laughed so hard the entire time. My face and my jaw just hurt, and I was like, wow.
I know, and it's so funny how when you leave a comedy performance or just some funny thing that you've seen, and it's like, wow, that was so good. And it literally, you think about it, like, it feels like you've been exercising in a good way. And so it's just, it's something that we've, if we can learn to laugh more, we're going to stress less and life is going to be better. It is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you have stuff with improv and comedy too, don't you? Besides yoga?
Yep, I
Laughter
do.
yoga?
I do. So I am actually part of two improv comedy groups that are here in the greater Olympic Peninsula area. And it's just fun because, as a, I was mentioning earlier about having to memorize every word of a play or every word of a speech like I had to give with TEDx. That's really hard. That's a lot of work. But with improv, we just go with whatever the audience gives us, and it's so every show that we do is totally different. We could do the exact same skits, and because as long as the audience is different and they give us different cues, it's going to be a completely different show. And it's so much fun because the audience often will want to, have us make mistakes, and that's what's more funny for them. And so there's no inhibitions there, because if you make a mistake, so what? The audience, they're going to laugh even more when you make the mistakes. So just have fun with it. And it really, it's something that I so enjoy because, you never know how the whole skit or, game or whatever is going to go. And it's a lot of fun, and I get so much energy from it.
I can imagine. We've gone to like the Renaissance Festival where you see some of those people, and yeah, they play right off of the audience, and I'm just like, well, sometimes I can think quick on my feet, but I'm like, yeah, I would be afraid of getting up there just like being lost for words, but.
No, you just have to let it go and not worry about it, because the key is whoever's on stage with you is there to help support you. So, so it's not, if obviously, we all have had times up on stage where it's like, oh my gosh, we just had a brain freeze. Like, what am I supposed to say? Or something like that. I don't know what to say. And the other person or other cast members, because it might be more than one of us up on, two of us up on stage, you just go ahead and you just give them a cue or something like that, or help them out. It's just trusting one another up on stage.
Yeah. It just always looks like a lot of fun, and I know it's a lot of fun to be in the audience and watch those things. Watch those things go.
It is, and I highly recommend if someone's listening has ever thought, oh, maybe take an improv class, even one class, a day class or an evening class. Just see if it's something that you'd like. Might as well. And it's not to say that you're going to end up on Saturday Night Live, because that's where, in a lot of those Saturday Night Live people, they started at Second City in Chicago, which is, the premier improv stage. But, have fun with it. Live, it's amazing how much fun you can bring to a local theater.
Yeah. That is. So your laughter yoga, do you only do it in person? Do you do online classes at all? Or?
I have done online classes. It's a different experience because, you have to be looking at all of the different faces to try and get that contagious laughter. And it's much harder to do it when you're on the streaming to do that. So it's usually better to do it in person. So we've gone on, on the road to do it at like we've done it for parks departments. We've done it for corporate locations, and it's basically just teaching them how to do it. And then it's just they have fun, they learn it, and then they can do it on their own.
And then you said there's like what 120,000 something.
120,000 clubs. Clubs, both online and in person.
So in other words, if someone looks for it in their area, they're likely to possibly find it.
Potentially. And if they don't see one in person, they can always try out one online.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in your experience, what are some of the common misconceptions people have about stress and stress management?
I think one is that that it takes a long time. what we did in the, with the activities, it shows it can take just 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes a day. The key is we have to find something that works, whether it's laughter, whether it's visualization, you name it. I mean, the book I wrote has over 120 different techniques. 95% of them are 5 minutes or less. And so if we can find 1 or 2 activities that help reduce our stress, then run with them. Use them on a daily basis, because the compound benefits over time will be enormous. The key is you got to start today, because if you say, yeah, I'll do it when I'll do it, blah, 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 you keep putting it off, you'll never get the benefit.
No, and you may wind up in one of those traumatic situations where you don't have too much of a choice.
Right. Hopefully not, but that's true.
Yeah. So is your website the best place to find your book? Or
Yep, the website has the book, has my YouTube channel on a lot of different stress relief activities they could do. Just scroll and find different techniques, because I do a lot of nature stuff too there, because nature is one of my favorite stress relievers as well. We talked about the plants indoors, but plants outside as well. It's just it's a wonderful thing. And you can look there. You can reach out to me on social media. So that's the best place to go to learn more.
Yeah, I used to always tell people dancing and music was my happy place, which it still is. But nature is a very big part of it, especially out here. And I will definitely take you up on that tip of naming I just planted a bunch of flowers. So
great.
Take you up on that tip of naming the flowers, because we fed this one rose bush and it's got at least 100 red roses on this one bush right now.
Wonderful.
So it just keeps getting bigger each year with more roses, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. So come up with a fun name for that. And I've got 2 plants that are on either side of our TV in our living room, and we decided to name them Lucifer and Detective, because of the show Lucifer that we enjoyed. So it's just have fun with it. And it's amazing how when you name the plants, they become, they become an entity in themselves. And, and then where you go and you start pruning them, watering them, dusting them, whatever, talk to them, have a conversation with them. They'll love it.
If I'm not mistaken, it has a lot to do with your energy, your vibration. You just kind of like are able to feed off of each other. We just don't often think about that. I've known people to name their vehicles and stuffed animals and other stuff. Never, I've known a couple of people to name plants. I just haven't really thought much about the benefits. So thank you for sharing that with us.
You bet. And I still have my teddy bear from when I was a kid, and he has a name, as well as my every car I own, I name it as well.
Well, yeah, you can't see them, but I have a ton of bears around here. I have a thing for stuffed bears besides dolphins. But
sweet, because I see the dolphin picture behind you, that's cool. Because
I have always been fascinated since I was a kid watching Flipper. Love dolphins. Always been fascinated with them, and the fact that they're intelligent, playful, and I'm like, that just kind of something that spoke to me. We have a couple of minutes left. So what is one key takeaway that you hope your listeners will remember from this interview about reducing stress?
What I would say is, don't trade your health for your career. It's a very bad trade. And if you don't believe me, think about the last time that you were really sick, let's say with the flu, a bad cold, whatever. Did you feel like doing anything other than lying in bed? And if you're honest, you probably didn't want to do anything but lie in bed. And when you only can lie in bed, what good are you to your career, to your business, to your loved ones, etc.? Take care of your health, because it is one of your 2 most precious assets, along with time.
Yeah, or even yourself. You're really not helping yourself at all either. You wind up kind of getting in your own pity pool, and
yeah. Exactly. It's right. It's that classic thing that the airlines say, when they're going through the briefing, when the mask comes down, put the mask on yourself before putting it on someone else. And actually, it reminds me, I was on a flight once where the flight attendant said, put the mask on yourself before putting it on a child or someone acting like a child. And then she says, if you're traveling with more than one child, put the mask on the child with the most potential first.
I like when you get the airlines with ones with a sense of humor. Some may get in trouble with that, but some are extremely funny. But yeah, definitely. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and sharing this with everybody. So I greatly appreciate it.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure being on your show, Laura. I really thank you. And I thank all the listeners' time as well.
Thank you. And everyone, I hope you have a wonderful week, and we will catch you next week on Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. If you haven't yet, make sure you click and subscribe on youtube.com at Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross, and you'll get this interview and a whole lot more. We'll see you next time.